For 3,000 years, the Galactic Empire had known only certainty. Their fleets patrolled every corner of known space. Their archives contained the genetic codes of 10,000 species. Their laws governed 1,000,000 worlds. They had mapped every anomaly, catalogued every phenomenon, and conquered every threat. The galaxy belonged to them, and the galaxy was silent. But on the edge of the Sagittarius arm, something changed. The Imperial Monitoring Station detected it first, a distortion in the fabric of space itself. Not a wormhole, not a jump signature. Something else, something wrong. The sensors screamed warnings in languages the technicians had never seen before. Reality twisted, folded, and tore open like a wound. Then silence. In the black void of space, where moments ago there had been nothing, now floated a ship. It was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long. Its hull the color of midnight, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. No imperial design, no known architecture. Its surface was smooth, almost organic, punctuated by geometric patterns that seemed to shift when observed directly. Energy readings spiked and vanished as if the ship existed partially outside normal space. The monitoring station transmitted a single burst of data before going dark. Within hours, the Imperial Third Fleet arrived. 50 warships, the pride of the Empire, formed a defensive sphere around the anomaly. Admiral Vexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, his 4 eyes fixed on the alien vessel. In 3 centuries of service, he had never seen anything like it. "Hail them," he ordered. "All frequencies." For 10 minutes there was no response. The alien ship hung motionless, its dark surface revealing nothing. The fleet's weapon systems charged. Fingers hovered over firing controls, then it spoke. Not in the Empire's language. Not in any language they recognized. But the translation matrix, designed to decode any form of communication, stuttered, crashed, and finally produced words. "Imperial forces. Stand down. We mean no harm." The voice was human. Female. Calm. Admiral Vexthor felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Confusion. Humans were extinct. The archives were clear. 800 years ago, the Empire had encountered a small human colony. Primitive, desperate, clinging to a dying world at the edge of the void. They had offered aid, but the humans had refused and vanished into uncharted space, fleeing from something they wouldn't name. No human ship had been seen since. "Identify yourself," Vexthor transmitted. A moment of silence. Then, "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Systems Navy commanding the UESN Valkyrie. We are human. We have returned." The bridge erupted in confused murmurs. The Admiral silenced them with a gesture. "You claim to be human," he said slowly, "but our records show humanity fell centuries ago. Your technology is beyond anything in our databases. Explain." Another pause. When Admiral Chen spoke again, her voice carried a weight of exhaustion and defiance. "We didn't fall, Admiral. We ran. We fled into the dark beyond the galactic rim, into space you've never explored. And there we found something waiting. Something old. Something hungry. What did you find?" "We found the reason the galaxy is so empty, Admiral. We found what clears out entire spiral arms every 10 million years. We call them harvesters." Before Vexthor could respond, every sensor in the fleet screamed at once. Behind the human ship, space tore open again. Not one tear. Dozens. Hundreds. And from each wound in reality poured machines, sleek insectoid things the size of frigates, their hulls covered in incomprehensible symbols that hurt to observe. They moved with terrible purpose, forming attack patterns that no living tactician would devise. "Battle stations," Vexthor roared. "All ships engage." "No!" Admiral Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "Don't fire! You'll only attract more of them. They're already following our quantum trail. We need to work together." "Work together?" Vexthor watched his tactical display light up with hostile contacts. 200, 300, still coming. "You brought this invasion to our space." "They would have come eventually," Chen replied, her voice hard. "They always do. But if you want any chance of survival, you'll listen to what we learned in 8 centuries of war." The first wave of harvesters opened fire. Beams of coherent matter disruption energy lanced through space, cutting through Imperial shields as if they weren't there. 2 destroyers vanished in silent explosions. The fleet scattered, returning fire with everything they had. Their weapons sparked harmlessly off the machines' hulls. Then the Valkyrie moved. It accelerated with impossible speed, its dark hull beginning to glow with inner fire. Sections of its surface opened, revealing weapons that pulsed with energies the Imperial sensors couldn't identify. The human ship dove into the swarm, firing precisely calculated shots. Each blast struck a harvester at a specific point, and the machines shuddered, cracked, and died. "They're junction nodes," Chen transmitted, highlighting targets on a tactical display. "Hit them here, here, and here. It's the only way to kill them. And whatever you do, don't let them take you alive. They harvest consciousness. They collect minds." Admiral Vexthor watched as humanity, thought extinct for centuries, danced through a battlefield his people couldn't comprehend, destroying enemies they couldn't fight, and he made a choice. "All ships," he transmitted, "follow the humans' targeting data. Protect the Valkyrie. If she falls, we all fall." The battle for the Sagittarius arm had begun. The battle raged for 6 hours. Imperial ships learned quickly. They had to. Admiral Chen transmitted targeting data in real time, highlighting the weak points in each harvester's hull. The Empire's weapons, designed for conventional warfare, had to be recalibrated, focused, concentrated. What once would have destroyed a cruiser now barely scratched the machine's armor, but aimed at the junction nodes Chen identified. Even Imperial plasma cannons could kill. The cost was terrible. 17 ships lost. Thousands dead. The survivors fought with desperate precision, forming defensive formations around the Valkyrie while the human warship carved through the swarm like a blade through darkness. Its weapons fired in patterns that seemed impossible, shots that curved through space, energy beams that split into a dozen subsidiary strikes, missiles that phased in and out of normal reality to bypass shields. This was technology born from necessity. From survival. "How many more are coming?" Vexthor demanded, his flagship shuddering under another impact. "Unknown," Chen replied, her voice strained. "They don't think like you. They're not individuals. They're extensions of a distributed intelligence. Kill enough of them and the local swarm loses cohesion. But if we don't close that rift soon, the main fleet will detect us." "Main fleet?" Vexthor felt ice in his veins. "This isn't the main fleet?" "Admiral, this is a scouting party." The words hung in the void like a death sentence. On the Valkyrie's bridge, Sarah Chen monitored her tactical display with eyes that had seen too much. 300 years in cryosleep, 7 decades of warfare, and now this. Fighting alongside the descendants of the Empire her ancestors had fled. History had a cruel sense of irony. "Commander Torres," she ordered, "prepare the quantum disruptor. We're closing that rift." Her second-in-command hesitated. "Admiral, the disruptor is experimental. If it fails, we die here," Chen said flatly. "If it succeeds, we die somewhere else later. Those are our only options. Prepare to fire." She switched to the open channel. "Imperial fleet, this is Chen. We're going to seal the rift. When it closes, the remaining harvesters will go berserk. They'll attack anything that moves. Form up on our stern and concentrate fire on the coordinates I'm sending. You'll have 30 seconds. Make them count." Vexthor studied the formation she proposed. It would leave his ships exposed, vulnerable. It required absolute trust in a species he'd thought extinct, flying a ship he didn't understand. But he'd seen what these machines could do. "Acknowledged," he transmitted. "Third Fleet will follow your lead." The Valkyrie surged forward, its dark hull glowing brighter as it diverted power from weapons to the experimental device at its core. The remaining harvesters, nearly 100, converged on it, sensing the energy buildup, understanding on some distributed level that they needed to stop what was coming. Imperial ships formed a wall of fire, screening the human vessel. Destroyers died to buy seconds, cruisers burned to buy minutes. The fleet gave everything they had. On the Valkyrie, Sarah Chen watched the charge reach critical mass. Fire. The quantum disruptor discharged. It wasn't an explosion. It was an unexplosion. A sphere of absolute nothing expanded from the ship, erasing matter and energy alike. It touched the rift and space screamed. The tear in reality convulsed, collapsed, sealed itself with a flash of radiation that would be visible from 3 star systems away, and the harvesters went mad. Cut off from their network, the remaining machines attacked with mindless fury. They stopped using tactics, stopped preserving themselves. They simply killed. Imperial ships shattered under the assault. The Valkyrie's shields buckled, failed, and its hull began to crack. But 30 seconds was all they needed. Coordinating through Chen's targeting matrix, every surviving Imperial ship fired on the same harvester, then the next, then the next. One by one, the machines died, until the void was silent except for the crackle of cooling metal and the soft hiss of escaping atmosphere. The battle was over, but the war had just begun. Admiral Vexthor stood in the docking bay of his flagship, watching as the Valkyrie's shuttle approached. The human ship itself was too damaged to dock, its hull breached in a dozen places, its systems barely functioning. But it had survived. They had all survived. The shuttle landed. The airlock cycled. And Admiral Sarah Chen stepped into Imperial space for the first time. She was tall, her dark hair streaked with gray, her face marked with scars that spoke of battles beyond counting. She wore a uniform of black and silver, and her eyes held the weight of centuries. Behind her came a security detail, humans in powered armor, weapons ready but not aimed. Vexthor approached, his honor guard flanking him. For a moment, two civilizations stood face to face. "Thank you," Vexthor said finally. "Without your intervention, we would have fallen." Chen's expression didn't soften. "Don't thank me yet, Admiral. You just saw the easy part. The harvesters will come back. They always do, and when they return, they'll bring everything they have. Then we'll fight them together," Vexthor replied. "The Empire has resources, fleets. Your fleets won't be enough." Chen's voice was hard. "I've seen systems with more firepower than your entire empire consumed in hours. I've watched worlds burn. I've lost friends, family, entire fleets to those machines. Conventional warfare doesn't work against them." "Then what do we do?" For the first time, Chen smiled, a cold, determined expression. "You call Earth," she said, "and you hope we answer." In the silence that followed, a transmission burst through subspace, encoded, compressed, traveling faster than light toward a coordinates beyond the galactic rim. A message that would take weeks to arrive. A message that said, "We made contact. They've seen the harvesters," requesting reinforcements, and somewhere in the dark beyond the stars, humanity stirred. 3 weeks after the Battle of Sagittarius Arm, the Imperial Senate convened an emergency session. Reports flooded in from across the Empire. Strange signals detected at the rim, long-range sensors picking up quantum distortions, and most disturbing of all, the disappearance of 3 colony worlds at the edge of Imperial space. No survivors. No wreckage. Just empty systems where millions once lived. The harvesters were coming. Admiral Vexthor stood before the Senate, his 4 eyes meeting the gaze of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Beside him, projected holographically from the damaged Valkyrie, stood Admiral Chen. "Honored Senate," Vexthor began. "800 years ago, we encountered humanity and dismissed them as insignificant. We were wrong. They didn't perish, they evolved. While we grew complacent in our supremacy, they fought for survival against an enemy we can't comprehend. And now that enemy is here." The Senate chamber erupted in argument. Some called for immediate mobilization. Others demanded Chen's arrest for bringing this threat to Imperial space. A few suggested retreat, abandoning the outer colonies to buy time. Chen watched them argue with something like pity in her eyes. "You don't understand," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the chaos. "You can't retreat from the harvesters. You can't negotiate with them. You can't hide. They map entire galaxies. They've been doing this for millions of years, clearing out civilizations before they become threats. The only reason any species survives is because the universe is vast and they work slowly." "Then what do you propose?" the High Senator demanded. "I propose," Chen said, "that you stop thinking like an empire and start thinking like prey, because that's what you are. That's what we all are." She transmitted a star chart, the space beyond the galactic rim, a region the Empire had never explored. Thousands of markers dotted the darkness, each one a human outpost, a fortress, a last refuge. "For 8 centuries, humanity has survived out there," Chen continued. "We've lost worlds, yes, lost billions, but we've learned. We've adapted. We've built weapons designed specifically to fight the harvesters. And most importantly, we've built a communication network that spans dark space. We know when they're coming. We know how they move. And we've developed something you've never needed." "What's that?" the High Senator asked. "Unity," Chen replied. "When you've spent centuries watching your species teeter on the edge of extinction, you learn that pride is a luxury you can't afford. Every human colony, every ship, every soldier knows that we survive together or die alone. She paused, letting the words sink in. The message I sent reached Earth 3 days ago. If they agree to help, a fleet will arrive within the week. But make no mistake, they're not coming to save you. They're coming because the harvesters found us first. And now they've found you. This is our fight too. And if we refuse your help? One senator challenged. Chen's smile was cold. Then we watch you die and hope it buys us time. We're good at that. The Senate voted. It wasn't unanimous, it never was. But when the High Senator called for alliance with humanity, enough hands rose to make it law. The Empire would fight. 6 days later, space tore open at the edge of Imperial territory. But this time, it wasn't the harvesters. Admiral Vexthor stood on the bridge of his reconstructed flagship, watching in awe as ship after ship emerged from quantum tunnels. Not the sleek, mysterious design of the Valkyrie. These were warships. Battle-scarred, heavily armed, their hulls painted with symbols of victories and losses. Carriers, dreadnoughts, strike cruisers. Hundreds of them forming up in perfect formation, and at their head, a ship that dwarfed even the Valkyrie, the UESN Prometheus, flagship of the Earth Defense Fleet. Imperial Forces, a new voice transmitted, deep and commanding. This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Zhang of Earth. We received your distress call. We're here to even the odds. Admiral Chen, standing beside Vexthor, allowed herself a small smile. Took them long enough. You knew they'd come? Vexthor asked. I hoped they would, Chen corrected. Earth stopped taking survival for granted a long time ago. When they heard another civilization was facing the harvesters, they had a choice. Hide in the dark and pray or fight back. Earth chose to fight. The human fleet moved into position, integrating seamlessly with Imperial formations. Officers from both sides exchanged tactical data, weapons frequencies, targeting protocols. What should have taken months of negotiation happened in hours. Desperation had a way of cutting through bureaucracy, and then the harvesters arrived. Not hundreds this time, thousands. They emerged from quantum space like locusts, their ancient hulls gleaming with malevolent purpose. Behind them, larger ships, harvesters in the truest sense, massive constructs designed to strip entire worlds down to bedrock and process the remains. This was an extermination fleet. All ships, Admiral Zhang transmitted, his voice calm despite the impossible odds. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. For humanity, for the Empire, for every species that's ever looked at the stars and dreamed of tomorrow. For survival, Admiral Chen added. For survival, Vexthor echoed. The fleets charged. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a symphony of coordinated violence. Human ships danced through harvester formations, their quantum drives allowing maneuvers no Imperial vessel could match. Imperial dreadnoughts anchored defensive lines, their shields buying time for strike craft to exploit weaknesses Chen's people had identified over centuries of war. Worlds held their breath. Across the Empire, civilians watched battle feeds, witnessing something their civilization had never seen. Humans and Imperials fighting side by side, not as conquerors or conquered, but as allies. The battle raged for 3 days. When it ended, both sides had won, barely. The Harvester fleet was destroyed, but at terrible cost. A third of the human fleet lost. Half the Imperial armada crippled. Entire star systems would need to be evacuated and defended. The war was far from over, but something had changed. As Admiral Zhang's hologram materialized on Vexthor's bridge beside Admiral Chen, the three commanders shared a moment of exhausted triumph. This is just the beginning, Zhang said quietly. The harvesters will come back. They always do. Then we'll be ready, Vexthor replied. Together. Chen looked between them. The human who'd survived the abyss and the Imperial who'd learned humility, and nodded. Together, she agreed. Above them, through the viewport, ships from two civilizations patrolled as one, human vessels with their dark angular hulls, Imperial craft with their elegant curves, different designs, different histories, one purpose. Across the galaxy, a new alliance was born, not from conquest or diplomacy, but from shared survival. The Empire had learned what humanity had always known, that in the face of extinction, pride meant nothing, only unity endured. And somewhere in the dark between stars, the harvesters regrouped, their ancient intelligence processing this new variable, These humans were resilient, adaptable, dangerous. But the machines had time. They always had time. The war for the galaxy had begun,